I'm Kiki Wolfkill, head of transmedia for Halo at 343 Industries.
So we're here at Reboot Develop. This is actually your second stay here. What's your thought on Croatia and Dubrovnik specifically?
Yeah, I mean, so it's my second year. For me, what I really appreciate is you actually get nice, informal, real talk time with the European development community. Like, it feels a little less formal and less business focused, and it's just sort of great conversations. So I love that about Reboot. Dubrovnik is incredible, like just stunning. And I'm a Game of Thrones fan, so I had to do the Game of Thrones tour last time I was here. Yeah, I mean, it's just the history and beauty, an incredible place to have a conference, really.
And you're managing to celebrate the launch of the final season of Game of Thrones at the place where King's Landing actually was filmed.
Yeah, so it's a little tragic because I'm actually flying out on Sunday, so I will miss the premiere. And then I have to wait till I actually get home on Tuesday to watch it because my husband would kill me if I watched it without him. But yes, it does feel to be in the home of King's Landing. Feels like there will be a lot of picture taking, put it that way, before my trip is done.
When it comes to transmedia, what lessons do you feel have been learned, or maybe the bar raised with what HBO was able to do with taking that series of novels and turn it into a hit TV show?
Yeah, I mean, I think I use Game of Thrones a lot as we're working through creative for this, because I think, you know, that's an instance. I read all the books before I watched the show, and they were super truthful to the books early in the show, early in season 1, and then started to make some deviations from the books, or canon, if you will. And in each of those cases, I found it at first, I was like, oh, well, that's not cool. They moved away from the book. But then, like, quickly was like, wow, that was an amazing moment. Like, you understood every time they did that there was a great storytelling reason for doing it. And so that's actually a guideline we use a lot as we think about, in order to make the story a great television experience and a great sort of character development story, character-focused story, there may be some things along the way that we have to shift a little bit, and as long as we feel like we're doing it for the right reasons and to make a really compelling Halo story, and that we can explain it and still be authentic to what Halo is, you know, that's sort of become our guiding principles, and I think Game of Thrones did a really good job of that.
What do you feel you guys have learned from exploring shorter media within the Halo universe over the last multiple years, stepping into the fuller television experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think we learned a ton. So if you think about Halo Legends, which was our anime anthology, which was really our first sort of venture into that space, and then Forward Unto Dawn was our live action digital series, and then Halo Nightfall. I think we learned a ton through each of those. So with Halo Legends, I think we learned how to work with different creative teams and basically have different creative voices come into our universe, and giving them the freedom to play in that is something I think we've carried forward. Learning live action development, and also working with sort of Hollywood teams, I think has been the learning curve for us through Forward Unto Dawn, and even more so with Halo Nightfall. And so I think that, you know, learning when to trust our creative partners, learning when to trust our own creative instincts, where even though we may not come from TV, we've all built big entertainment experiences. And also being really aware of sort of the timing of how production works in live action, which is really different from games. And so there are places where we may feel like, oh, well, we can work on that later or give that feedback later because we're used to such an iterative process. Definitely not the case in live action production. So if we have a thought or a piece of feedback or input, we have to give it then, like very early in the process, because iteration isn't really a thing once you start shooting.
Traditionally, Hollywood adaptations over the years have always focused on the big screen and movies. Why do you feel the television storytelling mode might actually be more advantageous to video game storytelling?
Yeah, I think for us the goal of when we wanted to really do a big scale Halo live action piece is we wanted the time to do what is harder for us to do in the game, which is really character development and character-focused storytelling. I think we've tried to do a lot of that in the games, but it's a different medium, and so we wanted to be able to have 9+ hours to explore those stories versus just 2 hours, because for us being very character-focused was important for this piece.
What's it like to finally have this, after so many years, be a reality?
It's funny because it's not unusual apparently for the process to take this long. I will say that until it's on air, I will always be a little worried. But I will say that having the momentum we do now and being as deep into the creative process as we are now is incredibly exciting, because that's the part that's gratifying and that you love, like the building of it. And I think we spent a lot of time with a few fits and starts, and also a lot of time in like the contract process, and so to be in the creative meat of it feels great.
What role will the games play? Because in the past, with the shorts that we talked about, there was always a connection to the game in some capacity, even if they showed up on the actual special edition of the game disc. But moving forward and having a television world to explore, where do the games fit in now?
Yeah, I think we think about, right now because the TV effort is so big, and obviously at home the studio is focused on Halo Infinite. I think we're always thinking about what are the right connective pieces, but we're also hyper-focused on how do we make both of these experiences the best that they can be, knowing that we have processes and mechanisms in place to form loose connections that will feel meaningful, but without keeping them so bound together that they start to pull at each other.
So it's a situation where you don't want to play the game over, you don't want to watch someone play the game. It's about exploring brand new territory as much as possible.
Yeah, it's an expression of the universe, right? And it will feature characters that people know and love, but it's a universe story, right? And we have a new universe story as well that we're telling in Infinite. So, they'll have connections, but they're definitely standalone experiences.
And even though everybody's very excited about this TV show, is there anywhere in the back of your mind where you still see a future for a big screen exploration at some point?
Yeah, I think that because the kind of story you tell on the big screen is different from the kind of story you tell in a television series. And so, I think I'm always thinking about where is the next story going to be told and what's the right medium for it. And I think someday a feature would be amazing. It's really just when is the right story ready and when is the right timing relative to all the other things that we're doing.